The Clearwater River in Idaho looks like what many people imagine untouched wilderness to be. Wild, mostly undeveloped, filled with forests, mountains, and wildlife. But then, looming into view as you come around a corner, sits something very unnatural. A massive concrete structure sitting all by itself in the foothills of the Bitterroot Mountains. So, why is this dam here? Why is one of the tallest dams in the United States located here in remote North Idaho, far away from major farmland, disconnected from any cities? It turns out this relatively unknown piece of infrastructure is playing a critical role that most people didn't see coming 50 years ago. And it's a structure whose benefits extend far beyond the region it was originally intended to protect. This is Dworshak Dam, the biggest dam you've probably never heard of. Idaho. This place has its roots as a mining community. My family moved here in the late 80s. I was a child here in Orofino for first, second, and third grade. We are headed up the grade towards the dam on the right abutment. This road is crazy wide and crazy steep because it's literally left over from construction. We made it. Morning! Doing quite well.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
I'm Lucian.
Lucian?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hi there. My name's Adam.
Adam, Chris Curie. Met you this summer.
I met you this, yes, yeah. We ran into each other right out here. Well, thank you for setting this up for us, guys. This is my first time driving on Dworshak Dam. I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but I more or less learned to ride a two-wheeled bike on this dam. Coming back here and getting to drive this. Oh, the memories. In 1805, Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery emerged from the mountains and entered the lands of the Nimiipuu, or Nez Perce tribe. This is the place where the explorers stopped hiking and moved onto the water, constructing dugout canoes for the long paddle to the Pacific. It's also the site where the two branches of the river come together, the main stem of the Clearwater and the North Fork. Fast forward nearly half a century, and things looked a lot different. The Nimiipuu, who treated Lewis and Clark with so much kindness and resources, were forced into signing a treaty containing them inside reservation boundaries, before being chased by the U.S. Army in 1877. Meanwhile, cities sprang up along the lower Columbia River with a fishing industry that drove historic numbers of salmon to near extinction. Gold was discovered in the Idaho foothills, and large-scale timber turned this land into a hotbed of the logging industry. Today, mining and logging are all but gone. These days, this region is known for outdoor recreation, fishing, hunting, winter sports, that sort of thing. But you can also come and visit the exact spot where Lewis and Clark built those original dugout canoes, within sight of the world's tallest straight-axis gravity dam.
So we're standing on top of Dworshak Dam. We're the tallest straight-axis concrete gravity dam in the Western Hemisphere. 717 feet tall, third highest dam in the United States. We impound a 54-mile reservoir upriver from us. 2.1 million acre feet worth of storage capacity in a reservoir.
Wow, how deep is the water right here?
It'd be like 630-ish feet, 640 feet here.
Wow, so you could take the Space Needle from Seattle and you could just drop it right here and it would disappear.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of forgotten equipment and that kind of stuff dropped over the edge. But yeah, it is deep.
Dworshak is a straight axis gravity dam. With this design, it's critical that the concrete be heavy enough to hold back the entire weight of the reservoir. As a result, this dam is bulkier and wider at the base than any other concrete design. If you poured the concrete of this dam as one solid block, it would inevitably crack as the concrete shrinks and contracts and as the weight of the reservoir pushes unevenly on the uphill surface. Instead, the dam was constructed in a set of interlocking blocks, just like Legos. The entire structure is anchored solidly all the way down to bedrock. As the concrete inevitably weathers and shrinks and hairline cracks form, the forces are spread out throughout the structure, preventing any one weak spot from spreading to the rest. Now we get to go inside the dam and see how it's all put together. All right, we are now in the main elevator starting at the top of the dam, and we are headed how far down?
So we're starting at elevation 1614 and we'll head on down to 1005.
This is not a slow elevator, and we've been running for a while now. Here we go. Woo! It is significantly colder down here. So we're now 600 feet some lower than the top of the dam. You can feel the pressure difference when you come out of the elevator. The dam is over 530 feet thick at the base. This interlocking block design ensures that this dam can age naturally for hundreds of years and still maintain structural integrity. It's actually very normal for concrete to crack and shrink as it cures. And that happened here at Dworshak back in 1980.
And so in 1980, a crack developed on that side of the dam. It was formed due to uneven settling of the dam. It was a problem that we had noted, and it got worse over time.
Any danger of the dam failing? Was there any problems in the structure itself?
A problem like that left unmitigated could result in flooding of the powerhouse or water intrusion into the powerhouse. There was never any engineering concern that the dam was going to fail catastrophically.
I don't see any water coming out of the dam right now. How did it get fixed?
Like an impermeable membrane was placed on the face of the dam to try to stop the bulk of the water flow. We had drilling crews come in and try to intercept the crack and relieve water pressure from the crack while injecting bentonite into it in order to stop the flow of water. And ultimately we're fairly successful. The concrete's actually fused back together. The calcium carbonate is leached out of the concrete and basically healed itself. We continue to monitor it. There's several hundred monitored points throughout the dam. There's a team of engineers in Walla Walla that look into that to make sure that the dam is settling properly and there's nothing, to be concerned about.
Dworshak is one of over 100 dams located all across the Columbia River Basin. And while all dams change the flow of the water, each one is built for a specific purpose. The smallest are diversion dams, short, barely noticeable structures that just barely raise the level of the river, just enough to divert a portion of the flow into a canal or some sort of pipeline system. Next, we have run-of-the-river dams. These are between 50 and 100 feet tall and are designed to deepen the channel enough for ships to navigate and also to generate hydropower. These dams tend to not have much in the way of storage capacity and typically have their reservoirs full all year round. Finally, we have high storage dams. These are the biggest ones, designed to impound a massive amount of water and generate a huge amount of electricity. Dams like this are located all across the Columbia Basin and are designed to operate together as a system, balancing the load from one side of the basin to the other and improving conditions for everyone downstream. Dworshak was one of the last major storage facilities built in the American West and was originally meant to be one of a fleet of high storage dams across the Clearwater and Snake Rivers. But the US more or less stopped building big dams like this at the end of the 1970s, leaving Dworshak as the final piece in one of the most important water management systems in America. So right now it's January here at Dworshak Dam, and I'm noticing the reservoir is not full. It's probably 60, 80 feet below where it could be. Is that normal for this time of year?
So 80 feet down is our typical winter pool. We hold 80 feet down, so we have the storage capacity to capture spring runoff. So we'll be full late June time frame, right up to the trees out here. And then we will slowly draw down for flow augmentation to Clearwater Snake throughout the summer.
So what would the flow in the Clearwater and even the Snake River look like if these high storage dams weren't here?
Everything downstream from Dworshak here is a run-of-the-river dam, so they put out what they're taking in.
So a dam like this really is the tool in our toolbox to be able to prevent major floods downstream.
Precisely.
Flooding is a natural part of the environment, and here in the West, practically all of our rivers begin as snowpack high up in the mountains. This means that our rivers swell with spring runoff during the months of March, April, May, and June before dropping to really low levels in the heat of the summer. This means that we get the majority of our water when we don't actually need it during the spring. And in the hot summer months, there isn't nearly enough in the river to go around. This is where high storage dams like Dworshak come into play. By storing excess water in the spring, you're guaranteed a steady supply downstream all through the summer and fall. This system is what keeps crops irrigated during the hot summer months, keeps city water supplies consistent all year round, and prevents floodwaters from destroying property and disrupting lives all downstream. High storage dams like this are a major reason why we have not experienced a catastrophic flood in the Pacific Northwest in over 70 years. 60 years ago, this was a free-flowing river, and they had to begin construction somehow by getting the water out of the way. How do you de-water a dam site so you can build something like this?
So what they did is they began construction blasting a 40-foot diameter diversion tunnel underneath the south embankment of the dam here. Then once the tunnel was blasted and encased in concrete, they built cofferdams upstream that diverted the river through the diversion tunnel, and then an earthen cofferdam downstream. So they were able to remove all the water and keep the construction area dry during the entire process for the powerhouse and dam itself.
We're gonna go see the diversion tunnel. So now we're underneath the dam spillway itself. This is carved out of solid granite. This is amazing. Now we're descending down into the left abutment between the dam and the diversion tunnel. Holy cow.
Take the honor.
This one right here? Both of them? Whoa.
So we're now in the diversion tunnel. This is where the North Fork of the Clearwater flowed from 1968 until 1971. When it was capped and they started inundating Dworshak Reservoir.
This is unreal.
So upstream, there's a 40-foot thick concrete plug. Ahead of that, there's a series of hydraulically actuated gates. They slid the slide gates into place. At that point, the reservoir was filling up. And then they had a certain amount of time, several months, to grout the rest of that plug in place before the hydraulic gates were loaded to a capacity, and this thing became a curiosity.
So behind that concrete wall right over there, plus a little bit more, is potentially 600 feet of water.
Yes. Yeah.
What about downstream? What's the other direction?
There's simply rock fill. You can't see daylight through it. It's not really perceptible if you're looking upstream of the dam. But you can kind of see the rock and earth fill embankment all the way over there.
Is the tunnel round all the way around, or is it flat on the bottom?
The tunnel is much more of an exaggerated D shape. It's got a minor amount of curvature on the bottom, but nothing to what you have up here. So it's relatively flat on the bottom. And that was the optimal design that they came up with so that this could pass debris, trees, that kind of stuff, when it was still passing the river for 3 or 4 years.
We're inside the diversion tunnel at Dworshak Dam, which has about 3 to 5 feet of water in it. Let's see if we can skip a rock. Hey, not bad. Still got it. That was maybe the coolest thing I've ever done at a dam. And I've been to a lot of dams. There's something like 600 plus feet of water above us in the reservoir and the entire mass of the structure above our heads. You can also see the joints in the concrete from the individual pours. Okay, right here we have poured concrete, and this is where it touches natural granite. This place is a labyrinth. Considering that we have the entire weight of the reservoir above us, it's amazing that there isn't more moisture down here. a little trickle of water seeping through a couple cracks, but it all runs off and is pumped away, which is incredible for a structure of this size. This is the most water I've seen trickling out the entire time. From an engineering perspective, this is fantastic. The dam has been very well constructed, but also the foundation has been very well taken care of over the last century. We're here at the very end of this adit. You can see the individual drill marks where the diamond tipped drills went in to break up all of this granite. You can see another one right here. This slot, the drill bit went through right like that. There's just something cool about going to go places that most people don't get to see in real life. 600 feet underwater in a solid rock cavern. Yeah, this is pretty cool. So here's where it goes from granite back to concrete. Got these stalactites hanging down from the ceiling. So now we're directly under the center of the dam, one of the lowest points in the entire dam. My understanding is this was actually built before the dam was built.
Prior to construction of the dam, yeah.
So what was this tunnel for?
So engineers wanted to be able to test the rock and make sure we weren't going to have any potential seepage after construction when this dam was actually holding back water. So they built these adits and then built chambers where they could actually pressure test the bedrock that the dam was built on.
Oh wow, so they actually put water down here, pressed as hard as they could to see if anything sprung up.
Yep, check for leaks.
Well, apparently it worked because it is dry as a bone down here. There's not even any moisture on the ceiling here, which is amazing considering we're like 700 feet below the top of the dam, 600 plus feet underwater. This is probably the deepest underground I've ever been. This place is amazing. The place that we're driving right now used to be an enormous hillside, like a mountain of granite above our heads. This mountaintop was crushed into gravel, turned into concrete, and became the physical structure of the dam. And what's left behind is a giant open quarry. Oh my goodness. Okay, I've hiked the walking trails around this quarry many times, seen it from above. It is so much bigger from inside.
So this is the quarry. This is where 13 million tons of the host rock, the aggregate that was actually crushed up and placed into Dworshak Dam was quarried. So starting out, they bored a tunnel underneath the mountainside and then drilled a 10-inch hole down from the top. They opened up a cavern underneath and erected a cone crusher. At the time, it was one of the 3 larger cone crushers in the world. It could take a 6-foot diameter boulder and crush it into a 6-inch rock. They then opened up that 10-inch hole to a 20-foot diameter access tunnel from the top, and they began shooting rock inside the quarry here, feeding that cone crusher, crushing all of the rock, sand, and aggregate for the concrete in Dworshak Dam.
So if we were here 60 years ago, how far above our heads would the rock be?
So that's the natural topography right up on top here where these trees are.
That's 300 some feet.
Yeah.
My goodness.
A lot of the dam siting, the studies, the type of dam took into account the geology around the area, the type of bedrock that existed here, and found it to be very suitable for holding the dam and construction of it. It was determined that the walls of the canyon couldn't support the load that a curved dam would put into it. And so the straight access concrete gravity dam does not require the canyon walls to support the force of the water. It's simply the mass of the concrete and the mass of the concrete alone. The straight access form essentially allows you to sort of minimize the amount of concrete and put all the concrete downstream to prevent it from tipping over, so you don't need equal amounts of concrete on both sides.
So the weight of the concrete is what holds on.
The weight of the concrete's the only thing that really keeps that dam in place here.
I grew up all over the Pacific Northwest, but one of my favorite places I spent my childhood was right here at Orofino, Idaho. I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and my parents wanted to find a place where me and my siblings could get some energy out. And so they would bring us up here to Dworshak Dam to ride our bikes on top of the highest straight access gravity dam in America. It was here that I discovered my love of big dams. As a 3rd grade kid, I felt like I knew a secret that the other kids my age didn't know. And that secret was that so much of our quality of life is only possible because of structures like this. The food we eat, the power that heats and cools our homes, even our ability to build towns and cities close to rivers that would normally flood, all of that is only possible because of big dams like this. So we're here in the Dworshak Dam Powerhouse. Tell us a little bit about what this facility can do.
It's an amazing facility. Obviously, we're a high head dam, 717 feet tall, averaging about 600 foot of head pressure for our Francis units. We've got 3 units, 2 100 megawatt units and a single 250 megawatt unit. The 250 megawatt unit is the largest generating unit in the fleet of the Corps of Engineers. So obviously we've got some competitors in the Bureau of Reclamation, but we're very proud of this 250 megawatt unit.
Tell me a little bit about what it's like to work here with the Corps of Engineers at Dworshak Dam.
What we do here on a regular basis at Dworshak is monitor the flow going into the North Fork of the Clearwater River, power generation, making sure that everything is operating correctly and operating within parameters.
How do you make electricity with water?
That big old dam we got back there, that reservoir, shove that water down a tube.
Just by gravity.
Yep, get some blades that spin, as that's a mechanical force. On top of that's a generator. Mechanical force, electrical force creates energy, power to the grid.
It takes 24 hours to start up a coal plant. It takes 36 to start up a nuclear plant, and we can't control when it's windy or when it's sunny for the renewables.
Right.
How does hydro fix that?
We can increase load in minutes.
When it comes to generating electricity, we always have to deal with trade-offs. In a perfect world, all of our power sources would be abundant, producing energy at industrial scales for an affordable price. It would also be dispatchable, meaning that it can be turned on or off when we need it, so that the supply of power always matches the demand. It would also be nice if it were renewable, meaning that it doesn't use anything that isn't replaced in the environment. And most importantly, clean. We don't want our energy to cause permanent damage to the environment or the climate. The majority of our energy in the US comes from these 5 sources, but only one of them checks all 4 boxes. Now, obviously, the clean, renewable energy from Dworshak Dam comes at a cost. The North Fork of the Clearwater used to have one of the best runs of steelhead in the world. And the system of dams in the Pacific Northwest have altered the ecosystems of the rivers in a major way. But the energy that comes from a high storage dam like Dworshak is uniquely valuable. If the power generated by Dworshak had to be replaced by traditional fossil fuels, it would result in nearly 2 billion pounds of additional CO2 in the atmosphere every year, or the equivalent of 180,000 cars on the road. If the energy from Dworshak were to be replaced by new wind farms operating at normal capacity factors, it would take 191 turbines to replace what Dworshak is already doing with only 3 spinning generators. A wind farm that size in a place like eastern Washington would require between 20 and 30,000 acres of land. That's an area roughly the size of the city of Yakima, or the entire surface area of Lake Washington. Dworshak Dam may have blocked anadromous fish from accessing the North Fork of the Clearwater River, but it also unknowingly created a new tool for managing the ecosystem that's become a game changer in recent years, largely because of climate change.
So the water coming out of the base of this reservoir is 42 degrees year-round, and that's cold. But the reason we will release water in summertime is to help manage temperatures for fish in the system.
Was cooling down the Snake River always part of the plan with this dam?
No, in fact, the dam was built originally for flood control and power generation. We started using withdrawals from Dworshak to help increase flows in the spring, and that would help smolt moving downstream through the system. They discovered that it was cooling off the river. So that part became really more important rather than the flow augmentation. If we didn't have the resource here at Dworshak, water going through the lower Snake River would be mid-70s through the summer. It'd be good for swimmers, but it would not be good for the salmon migrating.
There is no upstream passage on Dworshak Dam. Why is that?
Well, it's because it's so tall. We could collect adults and truck them upstream and put them up above the reservoir so they could spawn, but the trouble then would be the juveniles moving downstream. So you have a really long, deep reservoir with not a lot of velocity of the flow going through it. And so that really would be the problem in terms of getting juveniles out of this system so that they could come back as adults. As mitigation for the Dworshak Dam, the Corps built Dworshak Hatchery, which is one of the largest hatcheries in the nation, just downstream here.
At the time that they constructed the dam, steelhead were the only fish. And based on the number of adult steelhead, they sized the hatchery. And we shoot for an adult return goal at granite rather than a release goal. And then they've also added salmon. They do 2.2 million chinook and like almost 1 million or so coho at the hatchery. So like 5 million fish at that one hatchery, and then there's a hatchery across the river that does about the same.
Dworshak was built in the 1970s to control floods and generate peak electrical power. Today, it's an important part of our region's baseload power supply and is helping to safeguard the migration flows for endangered salmon in the lower Snake River. And as Dworshak is entering its second half-century of service, there may be even more climate-friendly benefits still to come.
The dam was built with 6 penstocks. 3 are in use. 1 and 2 are 100 megawatt units, 12-foot diameter penstocks. Unit 3 is a 250 megawatt unit with a 19-foot diameter penstock. They built 3 additional penstocks that are 19-foot diameter to power 3 large units if there was ever a need for additional power generation. There's potential right now, an authorization for a unit 4, and they would be building another unit and extending the powerhouse down in this skeleton bay where the water's at right now.
Remember, the best thing about hydropower is that it's dispatchable. It can be turned on and off at the flick of a switch. This is unique among clean energy because we can't always guarantee that the sun's going to be out or the wind's going to be blowing. Even though this dam is 50 years old, there's still room for expansion, which means as we continue our transition towards a clean energy economy, we've got room to grow for future demand. New technology like electric vehicles, data centers, everything happening with AI, all of that innovation is going to be powered by facilities like Dworshak Dam. This is a bucket list for me. I have been looking down at this trunnion bridge my entire life, wanting to stand right here. Look at the size of these things.
Dude, they're huge. 50 foot wide, 56 foot tall, primarily sized for flood control purposes. Each one of them is designed to pass an enormous amount of water, 9 times what our powerhouse can flow.
Wow.
We will use these in the springtime a little bit to allow water out of the reservoir that's excess to what we can pass and generate power with. In the summertime, if we're releasing water, it's through the powerhouse or the ROs where we get that 38 to 42 degree water. We would never use these because it impacts fish passage downriver.
Sure, this is at the top of the dam, so
Yeah.
the water that comes out of here is warmer.
50 something degrees versus 40 or 38 degree water.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is pretty cool.
It's awesome.
What do you think, Joshua? This is a cool spot.
Might be one of the coolest places in the Pacific Northwest.
I would like to be out here when these gates are actually open. That would be incredible. I just can't get over how huge this structure is. A solid wall of concrete 700 feet tall. It's facilities like this that keep Portland and Vancouver from flooding in the spring, and it keeps your lights on in the coldest parts of winter. The importance and impact of a facility like this cannot be overstated. If you like this video and would like to see more content like this, be sure to follow me on all the different platforms. This channel is 100% independent media. We are entirely bootstrapped and crowdfunded. So if you're interested in helping myself and my team produce more content like this, visit armchairengineer.com to see how you can become a supporter.